Good morning, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Biohack-it. And today, my very special guest is the health goat, Jared Ralsky, who I harass online about his guides to everything, his grocery list, what to swap in the aisle, what pots and pans to use in the house. So I'm super excited to bring you on, and now I can just harass you in person.
Yeah, I need that. I need to be harassed more. So this is working out perfectly.
So thank you for doing this with me.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here.
So I wanted to get straight into something. You talk about the Lancet highlights negative health impacts of processed foods, right? How did you kind of get into this and start discovering like all of the links and connections between our diet and what's really going on in our body?
So I went to school for like a health coaching certification
Okay.
at the Primal Health Institute, like, the brand Primal Kitchen,
Yep.
Mark Sisson. He's got like a health coaching academy. So it like basically teaches like an entirely ancestral life. And like I was into health before then, but like once you get into this, you're going through the schooling, which kind of like molds or combines like ancestral wisdom with like a lot of modern day science. So like all the naysayers will be like, "Oh, that's not a real course," because like the name of it doesn't necessarily like ring like, "Oh yeah, that's totally legit," but like everything in there was like extremely scientifically based. And they basically gave us like 4 or 5 foods to like completely eliminate from your diet.
And how long is the course, by the way?
It was like 5 or 6 months online.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, pretty extensive. And it gets into all these different things about health, nutrition.
And how did you get into this? You and I were speaking just before jumping on to give people a bit of context that you had a very different career before you got into health and wellness and education.
So I've been like an NBA basketball executive and scout for 15 years. And then during the pandemic, things just kind of went haywire for a number of reasons. And I kind of felt the need to like develop a backup option because I didn't know how much longer that money, like they shut down the league and the rules were extremely strict. So I was just like, I should probably figure something else out. And I just don't want to be reliant on them for a paycheck. So that's when I decided to go back to school. And then I just started creating the content. And then like once you kind of get that like foundational education, you just keep going down different rabbit holes and then just kind of piecing things together, and you kind of see like, okay, these are all these things that connect. These are major reasons why a lot of people are just struggling getting by.
And how have you enjoyed like the transition, right? Because that's so different from like scouting for major athletes, right? To then really working through people through their health issues and what's, going on with the root cause of why their health is in the state that it is.
It's just like such a paradox because like most of my job is on the internet. So like you're trying to like give people like valuable information, but like in a lot of ways social media is like a toxic environment. So it's just like I'd say my health since going on there, like I felt way healthier before. I never had an Instagram page. I was like,
Right.
what are you guys doing on there? Like, why are you even
Yeah.
on there? People were like, get an Instagram. I was like, it's not like how I really want to live my life. So you're reaching like hundreds of thousands and millions of people a month potentially. And there's always like that doubt, like, is this actually helping them? Because you don't know, like there's always a human being on the other side of the
Right.
screen, and everyone's dealing with something different.
Yeah.
So it's like I try to just make the information as like general as possible that I think can apply to as many people as possible, rather than like being this is exactly what you need to do. Like more so like these are the things that we need to be aware of. How you want to apply it into your life really is your decision.
Is up
but
to
like
you.
you need to be informed by what's going on. But it's like there's such a mental and psychological component too, where you're like saying, okay, this food is like extremely deleterious to your health, harmful. Like there's probably a mom on the other side that's feeding it to their kid. Like you don't want to shame somebody or make them feel like terrible, but here's the information and like how they absorb it. Like I'm sure that it does create anxiety for people because like this is kind of coming down like an avalanche on people. I feel like this anti-poison movement, like the space that
Yeah.
like we're kind of in, it's like gaining a lot of traction and people probably feel overwhelmed. So it's like try to make it, digestible for people, and hopefully like they can just implement small changes, as opposed to like you have to throw out your entire life or throw out your kitchen
Right.
or everything in your food like overnight.
Was there a moment that when you were creating this content, you started creating this health page and you started gaining like momentum, was there a moment of virality that you got really noticed for a certain piece of content that you put out?
Yeah, there's a couple pieces that like really Instagram is just a game like anything else in life, and like you can't make up your own rules to it. Like if you want to, reach people on there, you kind of have to play by their rules.
Right.
You can't go in there and just reinvent like the methods of creating content. So there was a couple of pieces of content that like had performed pretty well, and I was like I'm still like small in my mind. Like I don't think any of us are really important. It's not like I can walk down the street and somebody recognizes me. But like, just like a few thousand followers, but there was like a couple of posts that had performed well, and like we took those. Like I have a friend, she's like kind of like my soundboard for other stuff, because like it's stressful to put stuff out there.
Yeah.
You're getting like judged by the collective every single time. You're like, I'm a failure, so it's good to have like a support mechanism. So like I have like an Instagram friend. She's like become one of my closest friends. But
Have you met in real life?
No, because every time she comes to LA, I'm gone.
Where does she live?
She lives in Phoenix. She's like an Instagram coach.
Yeah, that's amazing. She's an Instagram coach, so she's like vets your content and tells you what to put out, not to put out.
Yeah, and I'm like super needy, and I'm like,
You're
what
like,
about
oh.
this? What about this? So like really, all we did was we took these two pieces of content like that like did well, but they didn't go viral, and we changed the hook on that. We just changed like the first like the print in the beginning.
Just
like,
the beginning of it. So you kept the same content.
It's like the same exact piece of content. And when we changed the hook, we made it a little more inflammatory, you can say. Because like that's what gets like it is really unfortunate that the content that goes viral like is the content in which people are like fighting in the comments. When you tell them like, here, great, eat blueberries, no one cares. They just scroll past. But like when it like becomes somewhat controversial,
that's when everything kind of implodes.
People blow up in the comments.
Yeah.
They're attacking you. That's like getting more traction. And like, it's really like, it's like really an unhealthy space.
So I did this podcast episode with this guy who's a dear friend of mine, Ben Azadi. So Ben is very much of the camp of carnivore. He's, he's the founder of Keto Camp. And so he did the carnivore diet. We spoke about it. That was a hot topic. And I'm telling you, all of a sudden overnight, I have like 200,000 views. People are going at it with each other. And it's like wild that it took like almost that level of negativity for the algorithm to like reward the page and like bring new followers and bring that traction. I was like, wow, like I just wish this could be done in a nicer, happier way. But that's what the algorithm wants.
I think it's what people want, because like the algorithm is just like all it's doing is just picking up on our habits and what we react to. So like if you are immune to these things, you're like, I'm not even going to engage, then it's not going to pick it up. But like people like, because I have plenty of friends in the space, and like when we do try to make more content like that's more on the positive side, people don't engage. So like I'm really just,
it's a fear mongering that works. Yeah, because people want.
It's not even fear mongering. Like, I mean, I hate that word.
Yeah, but it's like, this is what's wrong with your kitchen. Did you know that this household ingredient that everybody's using is so toxic for you? And you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
That's the content I send my husband all day. I'm like, look at this. We need to change this. We need to do this. Oh my God, did you did you see this? It's like, stop spamming me.
And people don't read the caption, right? Because I'm just like, take your time, make one change a month. Don't feel overwhelmed. Like, we need to have a balanced approach to these things, but we can't lie to ourselves either. Like no, these are like, there's very basic solutions anyways. It's like, and they're not even that costly.
Right.
It's like,
I want to know from you, what are some of like the common ingredients to avoid at the grocery store? So like, what does your grocery list look like? And then I want to get into what are some of the most toxic but common things in your house?
Okay. So ingredients, like when you really look at ultra processed food, it's always the same like list of ingredients, and they just like formulate them and just spit it out to make it taste differently. But it's always like the same 4 or 5 things, like when you look at it. So like really to simplify for people, like you really need to look at the brand that it's coming from, and like without fail, like if anything is coming from like these major big brands like Kraft, Kellogg's, General Mills, Danone, Pepsi, Coca-Cola,
Aren't a bunch of these
Mars.
owned by the same
Yeah, it's like
conglomerate that owns a bunch of
right.
these?
Like we've all seen that chart.
Yeah.
Nestle. Like so, like just avoiding stuff from those, which is really going to be the majority of the products in the middle aisles of like conventional grocery stores.
Yeah.
Or if you go to like a 7-Eleven or whatever it is, that is like a great first step. And then like really, if you've ever seen a food or like a food product marketed to you, you should probably avoid it, because like real food
Doesn't
like,
need that
yeah,
marketing.
right. Like you don't see like there's not like a campaign for like wild caught salmon, you know what I mean? Or,
Yeah.
like, we had that Got Milk campaign, remember that? Which
You
like
know,
makes me kind of
You know
skeptical.
what's crazy is I saw that up until recently. So I'm obviously I live in Miami, and I was driving by. This was like a few months ago, and I saw the part of the Got Milk campaign still up, and I'm like, why is this still around? Like, what's going on here? But I mean, I'm a fan of raw dairy for many like health benefits, but I think pasteurized dairy is terrible for you.
Yeah, it's like one of those gray area foods that like I think if you're getting, you know, like the red cap from Walmart, like non-organic milk. I mean, all these things, like everything kind of is working together where it's bad for the environment too.
Right.
Because they're like stuffing all these cows in like CAFO feedlots. They're not humanely treated. You know, they don't really have space to roam. They're not in their natural habitat. So
They're unhappy.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like I'm not saying like I have some perfect solution for it. So I just don't really drink it, but
Yeah.
right, like when you look back at that, because I've never seen an athlete really at that like marquee level endorsing like healthy food products. So I'm like, was
Well,
that
yeah.
Got Milk? Was that-
Yeah.
you know, it's like
It's I guess, you know, that's where the money comes from. So this whole debate we're currently obviously happening in the country. We're getting close to the elections as well, that big pharma has gone way too far into our lives. They're way too connected into our day to day. The lobbies are extremely strong, and they're poisoning. Society's being poisoned. And we're so divided on so many issues right now. But if there's one thing I think we can all agree on is the health of everyday citizens. Like healthcare, like good health and organic food and good produce, and like being healthy should not be just reserved for the 1%. It should be something that's accessible to everybody because you live in this country, right? And so I think that's a big debate going on. But that's the thing where the money comes to fund the athletes, to fund these big campaigns, because some of the smaller brands who are trying to do it right and not do preservatives and stuff, it's harder for them to scale because they're not owned by big conglomerates that are funding all of this stuff.
without a doubt, like it probably costs like Clorox like 1 cent to make a tube of.
Correct.
Yeah, it's like they have just so many resources and they're mass producing everything. So yeah, I mean, I think there's just like different factions in the health space where it's like you need everything grass fed and you need pasture raised eggs and you need like organic produce, but like some people, they can't afford it. Like it's just not even in their scope.
Right.
So it's like they still would be infinitely better off buying like the lowest quality eggs, which is still going to give you good nutrition compared to like Eggo waffles. You know
Or
what I
going to
mean?
McDonald's or Starbucks and having
Yeah.
their like fake egg.
Yeah, and I don't even think they're saving money really. Like
No.
I think like if you really broke it down, there's probably ways for them to kind of like fill in calories, like with some like buying things in bulk or whatnot. But it's just hard to, because like there are so many issues and so many layers to the entire conversation when it comes to nutrition, that like, I mean, access to food, and these are all these different kind of problems that like different sects of people are going to be dealing with. So it's like we don't have the answers for all of them, but like just in your own individual life, if you just went from like A to B, you know, small steps, like it's going to be better off. But I don't think I answered your question entirely about the ingredients.
Yes.
Okay.
I want to know about the swap in the grocery aisle.
So the main ones really like are gonna be like refined sugars and things like high fructose corn syrup, refined cane sugar. You want to be looking at that. The flours that they're using, so like enriched wheat flour, you know, like because if I think there's just been so many people that have, like, I used to live in Italy.
Yes.
They have gluten there, but like it's
It's not
completely
sprayed
different.
with-
Yeah.
yeah, it's-
How we're processing it, what we're spraying it with. So they're basically just like processing this wheat at such an extreme level where they're stripping it of all of its nutrients, and then they're basically refortifying it with like synthetic vitamins and whatnot, which is kind of foreign to your body. So enriched wheat flour, things like that. Seed oils, like vegetable and
it's a
seed
big one,
oils.
yeah.
Yeah, like
That's, it's so hard. I was like, I go to some of my favorite restaurants in Miami that are supposed to be like Mediterranean and this and that. And even them, the Mediterranean restaurants that you would think would be cooking in olive oil.
I found Italian restaurants like are stay typically true to form,
Yeah.
you know. But everybody has a line in the sand, like somewhere where your definition of health may be different than mine, and like we always have to keep in mind and consider like the balance of like not letting these things like consume us.
Right.
Like we want the information. Do I like go to restaurants sometimes and like probably consume seed oils? Yeah, but
Yes.
it's like I'm never like I try to just create firewalls in my own house where it's like why would I, when I have the choice, why would I have any of these products in my house?
Right. Right.
So like when we talk about seed oils, just because people may not understand what we're talking about, soybean, canola, cottonseed oil, rice bran oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil. I'm probably forgetting some, but like within those, you're getting a lot of genetically modified oils, like particularly soybean and corn.
Yeah. And canola.
Yeah, exactly. So these are crops that have been, like when people say, because I think that's another conversation that's been totally like, there's just a lot of confusion about it too. We're like, oh, GMOs aren't inherently bad. And like you have this conversation of like selective breeding versus what they're doing now, which is they're basically just making them like pesticide resistant and Roundup ready.
Right.
So you're getting all this glyphosate in your food. Which like the FDA and the registered dietitians and all these people will be like, oh, well, it's like, below the legal limit, but like, why do I need to consume any amount of poison?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
when it's banned in a lot of countries, it's not even allowed. So it's like, why
Right.
are we even standing for this?
so when you buy organic, like, you're not getting,
Yeah.
like they're not allowed to use glyphosate on there.
But even with organic, I don't know if you feel this, Jared, but like even when I buy organic, I bring home the produce, I take it out of the plastic, I rinse it and wash it in, a baking soda and apple cider vinegar, or just vinegar, really, depending on what's in the house, for 10 to 15 minutes, and I still see shit come off it. Like
Really?
there's like a layer that comes off, and I'm like rinsing it, and then I put it in a
I must
glass
be a terrible
container.
produce washer because I never see anything.
You
but-
don't?
I
I,
mean,
see
yeah,
shit
I
come
soak it in
off
like
it, and I'm like,
water.
look at the water, it's disgusting.
But
And-
is that the color of the fruit, or is it that,
No,
like
it
actual?
is stuff coming off my produce. It's like, I'm going to film it and send it to you now that we're
Go
text
for it.
friends.
Yeah.
And be like, look what came off my produce. But, I don't know if it's like when you become too aware, then it's almost not a good thing. So whenever I travel, I stay with I'm really lucky. I have such a great group of friends. I stay with them. And I'm like, because my house is being run a certain way, right? I get really like atypical, and I'm like, shit, they have this stuff in plastic. I need to tell them this. I go and pick up their olive oil, and I'm like, this is not single source olive oil. You shouldn't be having this. So I feel like, I don't know if it's bad that we know too much, because
Yeah.
now,
I try not to impose, like, people like they like see my content and like that's like not how, like, yes, I live that way, but I'm not like going around to your house and like judging you. Like, it's
I'm
like,
not judging,
it's-
but
if people ask, then like, yeah, I will like
saying I'm
interject and be like, yeah, you could do this better, but like, I'm not going to the restaurant and be like, what kind of pan did you cook that in? Like,
no,
it's just
that,
like there's just layers
there's
to
just
it, and
layers that we can't help. But I always feel like with people I'm very close to, should I like have a list to be like, hey, these are the basics to start with? Because I end up doing that anyways with close friends. And if I'm staying with
Yeah.
them, I'm like, hey guys, like, by the way, these are just the basics. This is what's going on. But most of the people that say I'm close to would consider themselves healthy. Like, they work out, they're in good shape, they drink enough water. But it's the little things that we don't even realize, like the level of microplastics in our system.
Totally. Yeah. And like these things add up and they interact with us all differently. Like, I can freebase microplastics my entire life and feel fine, and like you may have an issue. It's just like
Right.
it's hard to quantify. So there's like a lot of people like, oh, I've eaten that my whole life and I'm fine. Well, it's like us as in totality are not fine. You know, like
Yeah.
we're seeing all these chronic diseases skyrocket, diabetes,
Yeah.
autoimmune, and then childhood diseases. Like it's like insane when you really look at it, because we're like literally at the 11th hour and we're like going down this cliff, and people are like, hey, yo, check this out. Like maybe you should can we like definitively prove like each single ingredient, like, oh, it's
No,
the
it's
red 40.
it's
Yeah.
the combination of everything, right? It's not easy. It's the combination. They can't say, oh, it's this one single thing. I think it's a combination of like the perfect storm of what's happening in our bodies.
Right.
And I think I have these statistics everyone knows. In the 1980s, chronic disease rate was 12.8%, and now the number is at 60%.
That's just for kids, right?
That's for kids and adults.
60%. That, like, I mean,
I think it was even higher
2/3
at
of
another talk that I went to. Yeah.
are on medication.
But that's what I'm saying. So it's so concerning to me. I posted something the other day, and somebody wrote on my Instagram, they're like, chronic disease is just up because we're procreating more. And I was like, honestly, like,
No,
just,
or
just,
like
just leave the room.
We're
just
measuring
exit.
it more now. They say.
Oh,
they're like, oh yeah,
like,
we
the
can just
stupidity.
identify it now more. I'm like, go to an airport, go to a conventional grocery store, and like you can just see. Like,
Or you just
people-
see it in the pictures, like people in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, how they looked as Americans versus Americans today, how they're looking.
Like, I meet so many like 20 and 30-year-olds that are like,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, I have IBS, I have this, I have that. It's just not normal, you know, like
Correct.
where it's like, okay, what's
Or
causing
PCOS,
it?
yeah. Like,
Right.
and I think a lot of, when it comes to women, I talk a lot about women's health and fertility and menopause in this podcast. I brought on experts. A lot of women are experiencing perimenopause symptoms even sooner because of the level of environmental toxins they're getting exposed to, or glyphosate or heavy metals. And it's like turning their hormones in their body upside down, and they don't, and even personal care products, right? For women, that's a really big thing, is a personal care, endocrine disruptors that are going into their bodies. So
Right. You can't really like turn a blind eye, because if you're like, oh, the water, it's not a big deal,
Yeah.
or the cosmetics, it's not a big deal, the food, it's not a big deal. There's like 50 things now
Yeah.
for you to consider, like the cookware, the microplastics. Like, you can't just like, I mean, you kind of have to kind of
Yeah.
look at all of it, or else
Right.
it's like, what are you really doing? You know, if you're just gonna like ignore all of it, or
Right.
just ignore parts of it, it's like,
what are we really doing here? Yeah.
I'll take my chances, like just doing what, I mean, because if you look at these things as our timeline of humans, and I'm sure people would disagree with like how long human beings have existed, but like if we're just saying like hundreds of thousands of years, maybe 2 million years, I think is what they taught us at the Primal Health Institute, is like all these things that we're doing now have been around for like just electricity
Yeah.
has been around for like 0.05% of
Correct.
our
And that's-
existence as humans. So
yeah.
like probably not a good idea to have like overhead lights on and be staring at screens like past dark. But just like, you cannot override your biology just
Correct.
because it's convenient for
Yeah.
you. You can't just eat fake food and look at fake light and have fake communication
Yeah.
and not be in communities and basically do everything contradictory to what we've always done and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be fine.
Do you think, since you got on social media, from not having social media to when you actually got on it, have you met more people and created more community, or do you feel lonelier?
Well, like, it's
Because-
hard to, definitely lonelier, but like we also like kind of, I think the pandemic kind of eroded the fabric of society from like a community standpoint. Like, people are just more antisocial now. It was like a turning point, you
Right.
know? But yeah, there's definitely this element where it just like, it makes you lazy, you know, or like,
Because you feel like
less-
you can just talk to somebody online.
yeah, and yeah, just like less prone to like going out and stuff. But like, I try to go to a lot of events and like community stuff and whatnot. But yeah, it's not a great place to be hanging out too much. That's why it's like,
False sense of
I'll
security.
tell these people, I'm like, you're better off consuming like long form content, like a podcast or reading a book, but like taking in like 30-second Instagram clips all day.
Yeah.
Like, you're just like literally like just freebasing dopamine all day. It's
Yeah,
like,
it's
and what
not
are you
good for
really gonna
you.
consume? Or
I sometimes like fall into that trap and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, stop it. Like, I have to tell myself, like, stop it, Iman. Just bad
My
girl,
entire
just
explore
stop
page
it.
is like all like Michael Jordan highlights. So I'm just like, this is like totally, this is legit. Like any carnivore or like stuff like that, I'm like, hide, hide, hide. Like I just
You're
can't.
like, I don't want to see
Yeah,
it.
I don't
Wait,
want
are
to see
you,
it. You
you,
didn't heal all your disease. Not everybody has healed all their diseases by eating steak and eggs.
Yeah.
Like it just shows you highlights of people, and like
Exactly.
there's other pages, and like I have like nothing against any specific diet. Like I think it's way better
Right.
to do those diets than like eating processed food. But they're taking their very anecdotal experiences, whatever the diet is. You can just put any
It's
word
a
in there.
snapshot of all the other things that they're doing. It's not just that one thing.
And like a lot of them, have it be vegan, paleo, carnivore, keto, they went from like eating trash to eating that. And they're like, oh, I found the secret. And it's like, we have so many examples of societies across the world. Like, you look at these blue zones, whatever it is, people will be like, oh, that's a lie too. But there's people that have achieved good success in health, like eating way different diets.
Right.
Like the Eskimos in Alaska, their diet is completely different.
No, I
than
think
like,
it has to be down to your how your ancestors
Right.
ate. You
Yeah,
know?
and like that blue zone thing, like you saw like all the carnivores were like just up in arms. They were trying to like debunk it, but like we missed the entire point because it wasn't really about
The
like a
diet.
specific food. It was about like the food came from as close to the earth as possible. There was like no pesticides. They're all like had a purpose in life, in their lifestyle. Like they're
have community.
they're kneading the bread with their
Yeah.
hands.
Yeah.
They're like tossing horseshoes. They're just like living like humans. That's why
And
they
nature.
were, yeah,
They're outdoors.
100%. It wasn't because like, oh, they had tomatoes. It was like you can't just. And then you see these people like, oh, all the blue zones had beans. Well, like they weren't importing beans from Wisconsin into
Yeah.
California being like, look, I'm blue zoning it. Like that's not like what they were doing.
Yeah.
They were like, they're growing the food in their backyard.
Yeah. And I think it's that as close to source as possible, as close to the ground as possible. Eat seasonally. I think that's another thing with the blue zones. Community, take in nature, and spend actual times. And their circadian rhythm was also regulated. So they'd get up, looking at sun first thing in the morning if you can,
Totally.
turning off the lights. All of that stuff makes an impact, right? It's like it's a
100%.
culmination of like different things and different daily habits that stack up and give you that. There's no like one thing that changes you.
Right. There's no one cleanse, one detox, or
No.
like one diet. And I think people are just way too much in the weeds with nutrition because it's the easiest thing to change. Like people like eating. Just like, oh, I could do that. I could eat steak and eggs, but it's just like they're going like way too nuanced with it where it's like, dude, just go from like eating Pop-Tarts to, any egg.
Yeah.
And
just
like
start with an egg.
Yeah, just like whatever fruits, vegetables, like these are just even the seasonal stuff with like I'm totally with you on, but most people like we're not at like reaching 50% obesity because like you're not eating seasonally enough. We're not eating real food. It's like not
it's
that
processed crap.
complicated.
Yeah.
So like that's the easiest solution. You don't even have your diet doesn't need to have a name. Then you could start balancing your macros and deciding like
Where
how
you
want
fit in and where you belong.
based on how active you are and like what your goals are. But like you do not need to go keto. Like I see the value in some of these diets if you're like healing an autoimmune disease for like a short amount of time, but like most people need carbohydrates and like just
and want
a
the
variety.
choice. Like I met this woman once. She was amazing. She's like diehard keto, and I was like, listen, like I'm South Asian. I'm Pakistani. I like my rice. Like I like bread here and there. Like I don't want to. And I told her, I was like, hey, she's like, there's so many health benefits. I said, yes, but if it's like strict keto and I'm just on it forever, I don't want to do that.
Right.
And she's like, yeah, but I changed your life. And I was like, yes, but I'm not per se me dealing with a chronic disease. So my motivation behind it to do that is just not there, And I don't want to have to give up stuff because for me, for example, personally, food gives me a lot of pleasure. I love food. Like it brings me joy. And so why force myself into creating this toxic relationship with food? And that's the other thing I want to go into, these like really sound bites that we take on Instagram or these like fad diets that we fall into changes our relationship with something that's supposed to nourish us. And then that dialogue shifts between us and, the nutrients that are coming in. Because I believe everything energetically, things speak to you. And then we get into a lot of people develop not only a bad relationship to food, but they have eating disorders then, you know, and they're like, oh, I can't touch this because this will happen. So then you're telling your body all of that stuff. So it's a negative cycle that I think a lot of people don't want to go down. So for example, for me, back to the keto thing, I was just like, hey, I don't think I want to go keto because I still like my pasta. And she's like, well, when you start feeling so great, I was like, I don't feel that bad to begin with. Like, what's the upside on this? Like, you know, I'm like, stay away from gluten in the States, but the upside for me is just not there.
No, I completely agree. And it's like no one wants to get to the end of their life and be like, I had the best diet. You know, like yeah, like it's obviously like very important. But the psychology of it like is very real. Like I think there's this study, it's called Mind Over Milkshakes, I think. And they basically gave the exact same milkshake to like two groups of people. And they told one group, they're like, yo, this is like trash. This is like, you're like, you know, gonna spike your blood sugar. Yeah, this is like a true milkshake. And then they told the other group, like, this is like a spa shake. You're like, this is like really healthy, you know, like you're getting all your nutrients. And then they measured, I think, like the hormonal response in each group. And the people that they told that the milkshake was like garbage to, like they were like flying off the rails. And then the other people were like totally steady. So like, yes, like your relationship to food is important. And like once you let it like control you.
Yeah.
So like that's why it is kind of like you're trying to balance these things because like your first, and I think a lot of people are getting this wrong, your first responsibility if you're like creating content like that like is to do no harm. So if you're going on there and we are living in a society where like 50% of the people are obese like we just said, or it's nearing that, it's just not like practical to tell them vegetables are poisoning you. Like it's like, oh yeah, the defense nutrients or the anti-nutrients vegetable. That's what, like maybe for like a very small section of people. Right. Yeah. But like we don't
have bigger issues.
Yeah, people do not eat enough vegetables or, there's too much sugar and fruit. Like we don't have hospitals full of diabetics because like they ate too many papayas. Like it's just not what's happening. Plus there's like so much research that's showing that fruit consumption is linked to lower incidences of diabetes and insulin resistance. So like, and even like the meat and the eggs and stuff, oh yeah, it's going to clog your arteries, or people are just making stuff
labeling,
up.
Putting fear around food by creating these like labels that the average person's not even like getting to that point. So it's just like eat organic, eat whole, don't eat processed shit. If you can't read the back of the label, it reads like real ingredients, then put it back on the shelf and walk away. And, you know, don't fall for marketing just because something says it's organic or clean, switch it over. And the biggest thing I would say is like the seed oils component is like pretty big. I mean, you can't fully get away from it, but where you can, at least when it comes to the way you're doing it, bringing it into your home is important.
Right, like, and then the other thing is like they'll find the studies and the science that says seed oils are fine, but it's like, how am I supposed to believe because you look at all the ingredients in like processed food, they're all trash, like they're all like fake, just lab made synthetic like garbage, but it's like, oh, the seed oils are the one that's okay. Yeah, like everything else they give us.
But that's like being funded. You saw that article that came out that processed food is okay, and this and the other came out like a week or two ago.
Yeah,
and it was like,
not that bad.
Yeah, and I was like, who's funding these studies? Like, so I think there's a general breakdown in what we expect from journalistic integrity, but that's kind of gone out the door because of where the funding and the money is kind of coming from. So that is causing an issue.
Yeah, it's hard to sort through it all and like try to figure out like what's real from what's fake. So I just think we have ample proof enough because like they're like even these like the science bros are like really in like they'll be like, no, there's nothing wrong with Diet Coke, there's nothing wrong with this, like we have all the studies, but it's like we just said, something's wrong, you know, because like people are not well, so like no one ever like cured their chronic disease or like got healthy by like eating more seed oils and more processed food, where it's like if you just go the other way, it doesn't need to be perfect, but you're basically giving your body like what you were designed a certain way, right? You know, can't just be like, oh well, we found a shortcut, you know, like it's just not working. And we've been like building up the science for so long. We're searching for the cure. We're like, you know, like they just keep building this up. And we've been looking for a long time. And I just think, you know, we got to just get back to the basics, and
Start from
the
there.
answers are there, you know.
I wanted to ask you, what are some of the most toxic things in our home that we need to throw out right away?
Well, the first thing I think you got to consider is like your quality of water. And like this is like an imperfect solution.
I'm just
Like,
gonna
you know,
have a
if you're
sip
going
on
to go
that
with
note,
like
you know?
the glass from spring water, like that is probably your best bet, but also not practical for a lot of people from a standpoint of like finances. So like you can go to it's called the Environmental Working Group, the EWG website, and you can find like what
It's in your
toxins-
local water
Yeah.
supply and all.
So like you're doing this stuff on a daily basis, so it makes no sense to like be continuing to drink that. So like getting just a filter, even like a reverse osmosis or a water distiller, like again, not perfect because you're kind of like eliminating the good minerals from that, but like at least you're not taking in the bad, and then you can hopefully remineralize your water or get your minerals from like fruits, vegetables, you know, whatever it is that you're eating.
How do you like to mineralize your water? Is there something specific?
I will take like different mineral rich like superfoods like Shilajit sometimes, and then like I love the products from Organifi that are just like one, they taste delicious, and two, this is an ad. I'm kidding. It's just like they're putting like a lot of minerals in there.
What
like,
is it called?
Organifi, like I take like their red juice, and then they're like, it's called
Every day?
Organifi Glow and Organifi Red. It's like, yeah, because they're like every day in the afternoon for sure.
Okay.
Like I don't look at any supplement as like,
And
you
it
need-
just mineralizes you again? And does it have...
it's just like more hydrating and refreshing, and like
Okay.
you're getting like superfoods like tremella mushrooms and acai, like it's like in like a powdered form. So
Okay.
you're getting like a condensed version of like antioxidants,
Mm-hmm.
minerals, nutrients, phytonutrients. So it's like I don't look at like one supplement like this is gonna heal you. Like we've
Right,
gone
right.
this other way with like supplements and stuff where it's like you need to take this for this, and it's like sometimes I just want like a refreshing drink that tastes good and like is hydrating me and has like it's like health promoting.
Yeah.
So like when they're using all organic ingredients, like that's what I do is like I'll take some of their formulas, Shilajit. Sometimes I'll put the trace minerals in my water, which makes it. I don't like how that tastes personally. Yeah, just like a mix of things. You know, like I think our bodies have the ability to kind of like if you're putting enough like positive nutrients in there, like they can balance themselves out. So
I want to go into the topic of cookware because I harass you about that. Made you send me a whole list yesterday. My husband loves being in the kitchen, so I'm like, here's a list from my friend, and he's going to tell you what cookware to buy. So what's your
it's
favorite
just
cookware?
a very tricky topic, like because
Yeah, there was a huge guide that I got. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, this is a very
Like,
in-depth walks
I
through
spent
everything.
like a good 5 months like just like reaching out to brands because like it's very complicated and it's like I don't think there's like one perfect solution. Like the stuff that I use I would say is like close to as non-toxic as possible, but like there is an element of like we're trying to bring in as much information as possible, and like you're kind of like still you're never going to be like 100% sure.
Yeah.
So like you know, the non-stick cookware, obviously, like the Teflon is stuff that you want to be avoiding like 100%. So like, you know, like that's what most people are using, because that's going to start scratching eventually.
Right.
And then like those microplastics are basically going into your food. And then aluminum cookware, you're going to be leaching heavy metals into your food. And then like really this trend that all my friends, like everybody that I know is like, oh, I just bought the Our Place or Green Pan,
What about
Caraway.
Caraway?
Yeah, like that's bullshit. Like it's like
Yeah.
they're
Oh,
just
wow.
yeah, like first of all, if a product is good and like you're making an investment when it comes to cookware, you're like, I don't want to buy new pans every 2 years. So like when you look at those three brands and like anybody that's putting out like non-stick ceramic pots and pans, like I cannot stand these brands. They're like because they only have a one, or most of them have a one. I think maybe one of those three brands has a 2-year warranty. So they're not even sticking by their product.
What about that? What's it called? Crusade or whateper. The really
Le Creuset?
yeah. What about that?
Like Staub.
Yeah. Like Le
that,
Creuset
like,
does
I
stop.
don't
Because that's
want to
heavy as
like
hell.
demonize. It
Yeah.
is heavy. Like, you don't want it to start chipping
Okay.
any of that like enameled cast iron. And there's been some like individual parties that have like run their own tests, like, oh, it's leaching lead and such. But like, I think you're like, I would put it more as a gray area. Like, I don't want to like sit here and be like, oh, it's bad for you. I just like would be careful about the things that you use like on a daily basis. So even the stainless steel, most of that steel is coming from, through my research, is coming from China, which like has the reputation. Again, like, I'm not on the ground level in China, like in these factories, like, oh, that's scrap metal. But if you believe like what the experts will tell you, is that a lot of it's like scrap metal. So like, you're not getting a quality stainless steel.
Right.
It's like, you get what you pay for a lot of the times. So the stainless steel that I use is actually like, it's called, I think it's called T316, which is like a little higher level, and it's actually surgical grade stainless steel. So this is like the steel that they're putting in human bodies if they're doing medical procedures, because like in theory it
durable.
cannot leach.
Yeah.
If it leached into their body,
They
they
would
would
die.
have like serious issues. I don't know if they would die. I have no idea. But like, so like I'm using it. First of all, it has a life, like most of these like good quality stainless steel brands, they give you lifetime warranty.
Right.
So it's like they're actually sticking by their product, as opposed to like the Caraways of the world that are like giving you a 1 or 2 year warranty. Like, they're basically telling you it's going to break, because they couldn't stay in business if they were giving like a 10-year warranty because the internet is flooded with people that are like, oh, look what happened to my pan. Like, it's scratching, and then it's not durable. And like,
Right.
those are ending up in landfills. So like, yeah, you may spend a little bit more on the front end for like something that's
But you're
quality.
getting something that's so much better.
It's gonna last you, like, or it's an heirloom piece. You're gonna pass it down, and like, it's gonna be non-toxic. It's gonna last. There's this like misconception that stainless steel cookware, and like, I'm not in the stainless steel like lobbying. Like, it's like, there's this misconception that, oh, everything sticks on there. Just like use what's called like the mercury test or whatever, where you just like let it heat up, sprinkle the water on it, and like once like the droplets start like kind of dancing around, and like, you can YouTube this or Google it, like, it doesn't stick. Like, it doesn't stick for me. It's easy to clean, and it lasts. So like, that's your best bet. Like, I think cast iron for people that have
Low iron.
Yeah, like, it could be an issue for people if you're like sensitive to iron. So like, none of these are like necessarily like perfect solutions.
So
Like,
you have to match according to what your needs are. How often are you cooking? What are you cooking? Are you low
yeah, like
iron? Are you
rotating.
not?
you
Yeah.
know? Like,
And
I
have a few
use
things.
mostly stainless steel at this point.
There's another brand like Caraway. I need to remember the name. I have some stuff from them, but it's like match whatever you need to your lifestyle. and
Yeah,
take
like
it from there.
using something like that, like, also be smart about it. Like, if you're just like frying an egg quickly, that's like different than like boiling water in something like that, or like doing like those crock pots that people like, that's touching your food for like 10-12 hours, and those, they cost $40. So it's like, a lot of them are made with nonstick. You can get stuff for cheap too. Like, if this is like an overwhelming topic for people, literally you can go to Facebook Marketplace if you don't mind buying secondhand stuff. Like, I see stuff on there that like quality brands of like stainless steel that you can get way cheaper. Like Instant Pot, like, it's probably not perfect, but a better solution than like those
The
crock pots.
yeah.
Which, like, you can get an Instant Pot on Facebook Marketplace that's like used for like literally $30.
And how
or
much
something.
is the full price? Like brand
Maybe
new?
like 200 or something.
Okay.
So like, buying appliances, I think, like, for people that are like, secondhand, like, you can clean it. It's like, it's doable.
Guys,
And then,
if people are buying like secondhand shoes on people, on Vestory and places like that, I think you should be okay.
some of
buying,
us
like,
probably
cookware.
want new stuff, but like,
Yeah,
you're
but-
also like giving money to a fellow citizen, and like, you're not like we're over consuming also.
Better for the environment.
Yeah, for sure. So I like having things that last.
Yeah.
And like, these non-stick pans, like, they need to be replaced, and they're putting weird chemicals in them. Like, we've all seen that movie, what's it called? Dark Waters.
Yeah.
There's some truth to this stuff where it's like, because there's like this other camp of people that are like, oh, the toxin, it's not real. Like, like, everything, you're manifesting it.
It's like that group of people who's like, oh, eating organic is a scam. And I'm like, are you crazy? If you live in America, yes.
Yeah.
If you live somewhere else, it's different. But if you live in the U.S., you have to eat organic because of all the shit and
At
the
least with
hormones.
some, it's a good, like some produce is a good idea. If you're getting like an avocado or like a banana with
but
like thicker
it's got a
skin,
thick on
like
it.
a pineapple,
Yeah.
I'm like not as worried. But like if it's like, you know, we all know those like dirty dozen.
Yeah, I was just going to
list,
bring that up.
strawberries and berries and stuff like that. But yeah, it's like, what did the people in Flint, Michigan, they were all just like imagining it at once, where like they're drinking poisonous water.
Yeah.
So like your people, there's so many cases that people are living in toxic cities or like the air pollution. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not necessarily affecting you.
Then
so
it's
like,
not there.
yeah, so trying to eliminate these things from our life, like why? It's the same thing. It's like you're seeing the same patterns play out in all these areas of life, where it's like now we're eating all this brand new food. It's like Frankenfood. It's like literally you're a human experiment because it's like been around for like 50 years.
Yeah.
So like the same with the cookware. You know, like really we should all be like cooking over fires. You know what I mean? Like in an ideal world, but it's the same.
And
Then it's the same with the
pots.
plastics. It's the same with the medication. Like, you know, and I can't really say like, don't take this. I'm not a doctor, but like, it's not healing you.
It's not
like,
going to the root cause
it's making
of
you
why.
a lifetime customer.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
But that's what
we know what it is.
Yeah,
we know what time it is here.
We know where we're living. Another big topic that you and I connected on, which was really interesting, was the impact of microplastics and environmental toxins. And so I want to talk, like, basically from your perspective, a little bit about the whole role of environmental toxins, how dangerous they could be, right? And it's like something that we're not paying attention to, but we should be.
For sure. So like I have friends that like they are in the space of like running functional labs and stuff on people, and like, you know, I don't even think necessarily like any single test is like a tell-all, because like if you're taking a urine test, it's only really showing like what you're excreting. It's not showing what's in your tissues or your organs. So like it's hard to quantify some of these things, but you're seeing like plastic levels that are like extremely high. We're seeing them pop up all over the human body, like in placentas, all organs, testicles, like they're all over the place. It's like become so pervasive where it's like an endocrine disruptor. It's basically like mimicking hormones in your body, and like really it just has no business in like our in our bodies or in our everyday lives. So like the easiest ways really are like for sure bottled water, like, and also like the well, that's glass. So like also like the thickness of the plastic, you know, like the thicker it is, if like if you're using like even like a sturdy like water pitcher or like a Vitamix, like that type of plastic is like way more durable. And like again, you probably don't want to put like hot liquids in those all the time.
Right.
But like some of this stuff, like it's going to be there. You know what I mean? Unless you want to get a stainless steel Vitamix, you know, or a glass blender. Those are totally total options. But like the plastic and they've like measured this. Like we've seen the studies in like bottled water, it's leaching into your bottled water, or like the Starbucks cups. Like
those are like
terrible.
Those are terrible for you.
You know, so like things like that, and then like tap water.
Tap water is a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Like nobody should be consuming
Plastic
tap water.
cutting boards. Like I think we're consuming an average of like one credit card a week in plastics. Like just
one
from, like,
credit card a
everyday-
week in plastics.
That's a stat that I've recently
Wow.
heard. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's accurate. And then like I think 12 credit cards a year just from
Per person.
plastic cutting boards. Because like you're cutting it up, it's scratching,
yeah.
right? Where do you think the plastic's going?
Yeah, we changed everything to wood, in different like sizes and all. We have the fruits and vegetables one. We have one for meat.
Yeah.
Kind of divided it out, labeled it. But yeah, we've swapped everything out.
Yeah, which only makes sense. So like just those things.
Food containers.
Yeah,
Food
like
containers is a really big.
Tupperware.
Tupperware is a big thing.
Save your glass. Like if you buy like a pasta sauce or something
Yeah,
at the
save
grocery
it to
store, you can like use that again. You know what I mean? Like now you're
Upcycle.
just building up all the glass in your kitchen, and like it doesn't cost that much to get like one of those glass storage sets off like Amazon. It's like $30 or $40, like the Pyrex, whatever it is. Where like, you're just slowly eliminating your exposure, because that's like the best detox, right? Is to like eliminate the sources of it. And some of it we can't control. So like I'm going to put up the firewalls in my life, not think about it anymore, and not try to like live in like a
Like that
constant,
fear.
Yeah, like you don't want to be in a vigilant state where you're like checking under every floor where's the mold?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
You're
like
where is
we
it?
can't live like that.
Yeah.
So like just having a practical approach to it,
is the way to do it.
Yeah.
I did this environmental toxin test a little while ago because I'm doing the specialized protocol, and it's called the IGL test. It's done from a lab in Germany, and they just check you for every single environmental toxin. They check you for heavy metals, and it really breaks it down. And I was super high in microplastics, and I did this like 6 months ago, and I was very high in like things like nickel.
Really?
I was high in this stuff. And it's like shit, like, and I live pretty clean and all that stuff. So I had to get a little bit more hyper vigilant, but I'm not gonna, like yesterday I was recording a podcast over here and I was like, unfortunately, I was so thirsty and I left a meeting. They're like, hey, do you want a bottle of water? And I took it. Like,
Yeah.
it is what it is. I'm not gonna sit there and villainize myself and not drink. I will not drink tap water because I have like a complete phobia over there, but I was like, it is what it is.
No, I hear you, yeah.
But it was crazy to me to be like, it's between the chemtrails in the sky that we obviously get in, what's sprayed on our food, what's in the water supply. The baseline of everything that's being mixed in is causing the inflammation, is causing the microbiome disruption. It's causing, all of this other stuff that then seeps into inflammation, giving you bad quality of sleep. And that is what's making us sick and making us chronically sick.
Yeah. And like, well, I'm curious, what do you think was causing like your microplastics to be high?
I think it was a buildup. So if you're not cleaning out that stuff, right? So for so many years before I got into health and wellness, right? Maybe 5 years ago, right? Before I got into the biohacking and stuff, not like I was ever eating at McDonald's, but I wasn't as cautious because I did not know, like the average American was just like living my life. I was not maybe as hyper aware of don't drink from Starbucks, don't have plastic, containers in the house and stuff. So I don't think it was recent, but it was a build-up exposure. And then a lot of us have, the HRT gene is kind of broken, so the methylation is not right. And so I'm not really detoxing these chemicals out of my system, and that's where the buildup was coming from. It's not like, oh, you can just go and sauna this stuff out. So environmental toxins, when they get into your cells, right, and you have millions and trillions of cells in your body, and when your cells are not healthy and the wall around your cells is not healthy and it's not bouncy anymore, then that's where you get chronic disease because you have toxins going straight into your cells. And so you can't out supplement that. You can't out eat that. You can't do that. So there's a product, I brought it for you as well. It's Body Bio's phosphatidylcholine. This has been studied for almost like 40 years. And what it does is it refortifies your cell wall, removes toxins from your body. And it's a great everyday thing to be taking to offset environmental toxins. So I'm doing this protocol where I'm doing the liquid at home, but I'm doing this. It's called a PK protocol where I fly to this doctor in New Jersey. They give me phosphatidylcholine and high dose butyrate and a bunch of other stuff through IV. And I have to sit there for 3 to 4 hours. And it's really like,
You feel like it's helping you?
it has helped me because I'm doing testing in the middle. So like I was supposed to do 10 IVs, test in the middle, test at the end. I've just done another test. So you can see my toxin load going down. But if I didn't even do the test, my brain fog is a little bit better. My sleep quality has improved. My HRV is so much better. I just wasn't getting enough deep sleep. My deep sleep has gone up to like 2 hours now. I have ADD naturally, like that's who I am, but I was able to focus more on things. My cycle was a little unregular for a little bit, and I was not understanding why it's, not being regular at times. That's kind of cleared itself out. So these are the little changes I personally noticed. And, there's a lot of data and research with these guys to show like, hey, this product does exactly this. And it's not new. It's not a new brand that's trying to market to you and stuff. But it was a buildup. And it was like, I'm eating organic. I'm doing this. Maybe I wasn't washing my produce. That's how I figure out the produce thing when I'm bringing it home. So there was different things that were causing the perfect storm in my body personally. And it was affecting me. And my personal care products, I switched everything out in my personal care products: deodorant, body wash, shampoo, beauty, lotions, all of that stuff, tampons, in the last couple of years. Like, right. I was like...
You've seen the videos, like, oh, there's PFAS in your tampons.
Yes.
It's crazy. But, like, I do think when you're looking at, like, the pillars of health now, because everyone's like, you got your exercise, you got your nutrition, you got your sleep, you got your stress... You have to put like detox on there as well now, just because of the environment that we're living in. And that doesn't mean you need to like do enemas and crazy flushes and colonics. Like, yes, those things may be appropriate
If you
for
need
you.
it. Yeah, if you need it. Like, I'm doing a parasite protocol that's coming up. It's batched through this doctor. So it's like 3 different anti-parasitics. The first one I'm starting with is 3 days of ivermectin. And they say it's a 12-day parasite protocol. And during that protocol, you need to do 2 to 3 colonics for us because you need to dump everything out of your system and then do this test right after.
Yeah.
But that's not for everybody. You don't always need to be doing this stuff, you know?
It's the same as like with the food, like just get the basics in first, like, you know, get your body moving, sweating in saunas and stuff, like jumping rope or like rebounding, get the lymph moving.
And then
you
take
know,
it, kind of build it up from there.
limiting what you're getting exposed to.
Yeah.
And, you know, getting your minerals and whatnot, hydration. Like those should be the basics of like detox, you know, making sure you're like supporting your liver and whatnot. And then if things like really you need like further work, then like you should be working with a professional.
I think people, if you can afford it and you have time for it, or not even just if you can afford it, I personally always recommend to people work with a practitioner. It gets very, very overwhelming to do things by yourself. You're not an expert. These people spend time doing the research, studying, seeing what's coming out, what does the newest data say, all of that stuff. I personally always recommend people work with an expert. Don't overwhelm yourself. Don't go on Instagram and just be marketed the first product that comes your way. Educate yourself and do it in phases, because all at once also your body won't know what to do with it. So there's phases to everything. So when I started this environmental detox protocol, they didn't put me on parasites on day one. Some practitioners are just super focused. They're like, no, we need to clean out your body and then we'll dump out the parasites. The parasite thing comes later. So I'm glad I knew that, because then I'm doing it in those stages.
Yeah. And like you can jump on Instagram and it'll make you think you need every cleanse possible.
Oh yeah, for
or
sure.
That like this is gonna like it's a dangerous place to be, like 100%. You know, because it confuses you. People don't know what to do, and they're like, yes, I totally advocate for people being like their own self-empowered healer. How they're getting that information like really needs to be evaluated, but you're like riding a slippery slope if you're like on Instagram and you're like following 30 different health creators. It's like, plus a lot of these people are just taking their very anecdotal experiences, like and they do with nutrition. They're trying to impose it on the entire population, and they're not even
for
qualified.
Everybody. Yeah,
they're not. And like I've fallen for it, and like it's like cost me like a lot of time like dealing with health problems where it's like, why am I listening to like this person? It's their life. It's not applicable to yours.
It doesn't apply to you.
Yeah, so it's a tricky space to be in, and like, you know, I would recommend people like working, because even professionals, like, you know, they can miss stuff, you know.
Yeah, because
but, like you need to be looking at
so
all
many
things.
different things. I've worked with different types of people. I've worked with coaches. I've worked with functional medicine doctors. I'm landed kind of in a really good sweet spot now. I think there's certain things that you need to go to a functional doctor for. A coach cannot do it for you. You need to see an actual traditionally trained doctor who went non-traditional. And that's something I look for as well. Like, what was your actual background before you went into this alternative medicine? Do you have a traditional medical training? Because that gives you like the baseline on things. And then they took this more altruistic, holistic kind of approach to things. And so that's important to be like, what am I really dealing with, and who's the right fit to help me with that? Because it's not just about parasites and colonics, right? It's much more than that.
Yeah, and people are just way too sure of themselves on there. Like, this is it. Like, no, it's not. It was it for you. But like for every success story, like there are plenty of people who have, like there's pages, I think it's called like Carnivore Cringe or something, that people have had like major health problems by trying that diet. It's not like
one size fits all. Yeah,
you know, that's like, and we're always looking, and it's really like it's the same people that were like against, like if you're looking at the pandemic where they're like, why are you trying to impose a one size fits all medication on all of us? Which I agree with them. Like every human buys, but now they're doing the same thing with like their diet or whatever it is, where it's like, that's the only thing that you like, your income is probably dependent now on you digging your heels in on like one specific diet, whatever it is, you know. If you're like, literally the name of your Instagram handle is like your diet. It's like everything. And if it doesn't work for you, because I've been there too, where I'm like, this is it, and like it's hard to let go of that, where you like, I was wrong. You You know what I mean? Because you're seeing people like they're jumping. I'm like, you gotta. I actually think that shows strength when like a creator or somebody like in the field's like, okay, like I was doing that, it didn't work.
And this
for
didn't
me.
work for me. This is
Yeah.
why. Yeah.
But I try not to even like put that much of my personal experiences on there because I don't, you know, like I don't show my whole life on there, so they don't know. They don't. I live in Los Angeles. Somebody else may be living in Kansas.
Yeah,
It's like
and
not
it's a different
practical.
environmental
Yeah.
exposure to things. So
Totally different. So yeah, there's a lot of information out there.
I like the fact that we're friends and I can just pick your brain. I'm like, Jared, what pot should I buy? Jared,
It's
what do you think
easy.
about this? Yeah. Jared, give me your guide right now.
Everybody needs the guide.
Where can people find you on social media?
The.health.goat. So GOAT, greatest of all time.
Yes.
Yeah, and the guides we're talking about, the kitchen guide's completely free. It's like I put in all this research
Work.
from like months in it, and it basically gives you like swaps for like all your kitchen items.
And it's amazing.
Yeah, so like we're talking about pots, pans, air fryers, which is like another thing I
Yes.
just wouldn't use on a daily basis. You know, I don't think any of them
Don't
are
air fry everything.
perfect. Yeah, like there's always a cost for convenience. Coffee makers, food storage, like just try to make it as simple as possible. You just all the options are in there. And then I've also got a grocery guide. That one is like basically gives you swaps for like every aisle of the grocery store. So like, yes, we do want to be eating like single ingredient foods,
Right.
like fruits, vegetables,
But where
healthy
you
protein. But like for people that are like filling out their pantry or shopping for the kids, it basically like chips, granola, cereal, like milk, yogurt. It's like here are the good brands based on the ingredients.
Just
Here are
what
the
to look
brands to
for.
avoid. And like through like reading through that and like kind of observing it, like you're gonna start learning how to read food labels, and then you're gonna be able to do it on your own. Because
Right.
it's like you got to learn how to do it on your own. And like this, like we're kind of living in this space now where it's like survival of the fittest, where it's like, you know, you just have to be. You can't be healthy by being lucky in 2024.
No.
It's
If you're
just
not
like-
working on your health, you're only getting sicker. Like there's no
it's just how it is now. You know, like you're seeing, we have the evidence like around us. Like, yeah, there's always going to be exceptions, but like that's luck. You know what I mean? Or like, yeah, genetics. There also is this like thing where it's like, oh yeah, genetics don't play a part. Yes, they do.
Yes, they
where
do.
it's like, if I'm to think like, if you were like a world-class athlete, like Usain Bolt or somebody like that, who's just like a freak, like a Michael Jordan, like
Yeah.
they're just freaks. If their physical structure, like physically, whatever it is, like they were just built, like I could have never been that, no matter how hard I tried. Like my physical structure, my muscles, like my
just never gonna do that.
My skeletal system was never going to be on that level. Why am I to think that some people also don't have like an advantage internally?
Yes.
Like, or they have stronger organs or liver
Yeah.
or whatever it is, detox organs, like, you know, it just only makes sense to me. And then the people that are like gaslighting you and be like, you don't need to detox, you have a kidney and lungs. Well, why is that the one system in your body that like supposedly that's going to run perfectly like your whole life? Like, you know, like all the other systems, like is your brain always at 100%?
Yeah.
No, like your muscles always feel like as good as possible. No, your immune system, if they're like, is that always at 100%? No, but like, oh, your detox, that one's untouched. You know, it's like, what are we even talking about? Like, don't listen to people on the internet. You
Yeah.
know, learn how to
Educate
navigate
yourself, yeah.
and get the basics down. And like,
And then
we're
go
always,
from there.
Yeah, we're worried about like every supplement. Like when you're not going to bed at 10 every night. You're not
Yeah.
exercising and moving your body. You're not getting 10,000 steps. You're not eating real food, and you're like worried about, oh, I heard like coconut oil is like good for my brain health. Like it doesn't matter if you're not
doing the
like,
basics.
laying the foundation.
I don't get 10,000 steps in. Should I just admit this now?
I looked yesterday, and for the last month I've averaged 10,000.
That's amazing. What are you just walking around the block?
I take a lot of like long bike rides and then like
That's
hike.
amazing.
So it's like almost like an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah, I forgot you guys in LA can go hike.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Like I'll walk down to the beach. I'm like 15 blocks.
Mm-hmm.
10,000 is not that hard. Or like using your commute as a way to just like, if you can do stuff outside, you're checking multiple boxes. Like
Yeah,
every
yeah.
study shows there's like way more benefits to working out, exercising
Outside then.
Yeah, because now you're like helping your vitamin D, your sunlight, your circadian rhythm, you're in nature, and you're moving. So
Right.
like, or if you're taking a walk, you're checking multiple boxes, and now you're off your phone. So like, you're stacking
Win-win,
habits.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love doing this with you. This has
Yeah.
been so fun.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you for coming to meet me
awesome,
this
for
morning.
sure.